there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I have a really fun and really simple video and we are going to be stamping or putting impressions into our embossing. So I am starting off with using some Gina masking magic. This is just a really high quality masking paper and this is my favorite for any techniques where I'm not exactly sure how they're going to go. So I have done this technique but never have I created the background using this kind of way. So I in the past have done kind of torn paper or ripped paper looks for inking, but I wanted to do it for embossing. So I have my little piece of masking paper here, and although this does feel like a little bit of a waste, and looking back I wish I had probably cut out a circle out of the middle before I started tearing, but nonetheless we live and we learn and that's okay too. But I am just going to tear a circle. Now I'm able to tear this masking paper pretty well. It does seem to have like some kind of perhaps plasticky coating or something, and I think that helps. That's part of the reason as to why it is such a good masking paper for inks and things, because you can ink up so heavily on this masking paper and it is brilliant. It's as good as it gets to a guarantee in crafting when it means that you won't get ink that is going to bleed through. But anyway, I am able to tear this and I'm just tearing a really big kind of oval-ish shape. I do want this to look like it's been torn, kind of like torn edges, but I want it all to be kind of one with the paper, if that makes sense, with my background here. So I'm taking off the release paper once I have my shape sorted. You could obviously do any shape here, squares, or just like a really random rip might be cool, but I kind of went for an oval shape with the torn edges, I guess. I'm making sure it is well sealed down onto my paper, and then because my piece of masking wasn't big enough, I probably didn't think this through and I didn't want to ruin this now that I had gone this far. I am going to use some low tack tape and I'm going to mask off the edges. Then I'm going to take some VersaMark sticky embossing ink and I'm going to ink up that center part of my oval which is exposed onto my card. So I am just going to make sure that there is plenty there, and then I chose any color. You can go with any colors that you have, but I chose to go gold today. Now pretty much any embossing powder is going to work for this. It is no rhyme or reason, just use what you have in your stash. You can use any colors that you have in your stash. So just put on a layer, and then it doesn't have to be neat and tidy because we've got all those masks and things there. Melt it just like you would any other embossing powder, except for this time around we are going to put lots and lots of layers on. So once this is dry, you can either re-ink this up using your VersaMark pad again. And make sure it's dry because you don't want to come in too quick while the embossing powder is still wet and not dried properly, and then you'll pop your ink pad in it and you will ruin your ink pad, and ask me how I know. So we have done that before, but never mind, we live and we learn, as we say. We're full of lessons, and keep putting on the next layer of embossing powder. If you are super speedy, then you are able to actually just pour the embossing powder on top. I kind of ended up doing this in halves just because otherwise it would dry before I could get to it, and just make sure you have lots and lots of layers. So now I'm turning it around, heating it up instead of using the VersaMark, tipping on the embossing powder and then melting it again and again and again. And the more layers that you have for this, the better that this is going to work. Now I actually have another video that I did using this in a similar way, except I used smaller kind of stamps to be the main features here, and I will link that video down below as well in case you are interested. It was a really popular video, but this time I'm going to do kind of a shape and then I'm doing a big stamp background. Mainly because I love trying out new things and kind of doing it in different ways all the time. Now I am just taking off my mint tape, which comes off really nice and easy, and then when I came to take off the masking paper, I just actually heated the embossing powder up just slightly, because here when I didn't do it, I just it kind of got a little bit stuck. So if I heat it very gently, not to the point that it melts, but literally for a couple of seconds, and then I have this big kind of ripped blob in the middle, and I really like this. Now a few things that you could do here. I have these normal stamps here that is the text background, but I also have this big wooden block that I got many years ago, and this is a text script chipped as well. Now anything is going to work, but I do recommend that you ink up your stamps that you're going to use with some VersaMark first, and this just protects the stamps and makes it easier for releasing off of your embossing. Now use whatever you want. If I was going to use the text stamps, then I would have put them on an acrylic block and use them that way. Then you want to heat up this big puddle of embossing powder that we have. So this is really nice and thick. And this is kind of a bit where you don't want to muck around. You kind of heat it up and then you put your stamp down onto it. This is probably a big enough area to do in one lot. If I had an area bigger than this, I would probably do this in a couple of different goes. It's even easier if you're using individual smaller stamps, because then you can definitely heat up areas as you go. But for this, I heated up the whole thing quite a lot, so it was almost melted. Then I'm putting this big text step down. I'm pressing down with my hands pretty hard, then lifting slowly, and you get this beautiful impression into your embossing powder. Now it is definitely not perfect, and it's not easy to get a perfect kind of impression there, but I like that. And I guess none of the card making techniques usually go absolutely perfectly, so I like that it looks like that. Now this is the flower picking friends. I know that I have been using this one lately a lot. This lily is my favorite. You absolutely know that. But I do love that you can kind of choose and customize the lily here. I'm going to choose Chipped Sapphire, which is a dark blue. This is probably one of my favorite colors in the Distress Oxide range, and I'm almost positive that you can't get lilies this color, but I really wanted this to go with the gold embossing. And who says we have to follow the rules? We can do whatever we want here. So a blue lily it is. Then I just squish down some onto an acrylic block, and I pop in some of these little dots that go on the lilies. And then for the stems, I tend to always pretty much use the Mowed lawn color, and you can use a paintbrush, you can use a water brush, you can use whatever you want here. I am going to fussy cut out this flower, so I wasn't too worried about going over the edges there when I did that little bud. You can do absolutely any colouring for this. You could do alcohol markers, you could do watercolours, you could do colouring pencils, just whatever you are comfortable with doing. And then, as I said, I fussy cut this out because this doesn't have dies, and I often don't buy any dies to go with my images. I don't mind fussy cutting. I am a little bit fussy with the images that I choose to fussy cut, but I don't mind the odd little bit of fussy cutting if it's nice kind of straight lines and not too tricky. So once I've cut that out, I have this Altenew, I think this is called Heartfelt Sentiments. This is a really old stamp set now, and I'm not sure if it's available, but any sentiment is going to go well on here. You could do birthdays, you could do celebrations, you could do thinking of you could do anything at all. So this is going to be a sympathy card today. I didn't feel like it was too bright and crazy for a sympathy card, so you could do lots of different occasions here. So this one says, with deepest sympathy. And I will turn this the right way up to stamp this down, and stamp it down just on a little piece of cardstock. And then, as per usual, I'm just going to cut this out with my long bladed scissors, and then this is going to go on the front as well. As I said, any occasion is going to work really nicely, and if you don't want to stamp it on the front, you don't want to have a sentiment on the front, then I have been really enjoying not using any sentiments on cards at the moment, or I will add them when the right occasion kind of comes along and I know what occasion I'm using the card for, or I can stamp something in the middle. So lots of different options there. I cut down my front little panel just a little bit, added some foam tape on the back, and look at that gorgeous shine. I really love this background. It's quite intense, but it's also kind of really clean and simple at the same time, if that's possible. So yeah, this was a fun background to do, and I had lots of fun creating it, and it was really simple and actually didn't take me that much time. So that's all good things in my card making. And given that you could put any little focal point on the front here, anything, then I pretty much think that if you've been card making for any length of time, that you would be able to recreate this using the tools that you have. There's nothing crazy or special that you needed to purchase for this. I will leave links to all the things that I have used down below in the description box below this video. For this one, I chose to just put the sentiment and the lily down nice and flat, and then I'm just going to hold an acrylic block down over it just to make sure that it is going to get a really good connection and that glue is going to dry nicely. Then I will cut off the little tip because the flower was a little bit longer than what I needed. And then that is my card finished for today. Really kind of simple, but with all of that gold shine, it is an absolutely stunning, beautiful card that I really enjoyed creating. So I hope that you enjoyed coming along on this ride with me today and seeing this video and how I created this card. And then I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you so much for all of your kind comments. It means the world to me reading them as a creator. So thank you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.